It's 1 a.m. Quiet enough for me to actually focus on a task for 30, maybe even 40 minutes at a stretch. I'm trying to write a grant or respond to emails or write back to family and friends I've neglected, but I have a problem. My right dominant arm is being slowly, spasmodically humped by my cat, Floki, and we both need him to nut so we can get on with our lives. Floki is one of 2 boys I adopted from a friend who discovered a litter of kittens behind the laundry in her complex in Tijuana. They were healthy but small, and I gave them strong Viking names in the hopes that they would grow into them, Ragnar and Floki. Ragnar has cost me $14,000 in medical bills, between just 2 incidents by the time he turned 4. The first happened when he escaped out a bathroom window and tore his toe off during the fall. The second because a crystal formed in his dick. Not the kind of crystal a girl who names herself Cricket believes will ward off bad energy. No, very much the opposite. Each time at the emergency vet, I was presented with a piece of paper that asked, "Do you want us to kill your friend, or will you pay whatever we decide it costs to keep him alive?" And I've paid it both times because I am not a monster. And I decided I could afford it. I mean, what's taking a vacation or owning a pair of boots that aren't old enough to vote compared to preserving the life of a perfect, if accident-prone, child of God? I'd fight harder to keep Ragnar alive more than I would most humans, I know. Ragnar is my sock monkey. He's Mr. Waffles. He's the boy who lived. I am 43 and live alone with 2 cats. If they don't make it, the world will need to put me down, humanely or otherwise. I let both of them out on in the backyard regularly, encased in harnesses, on leashes. Don't come for me. Ragnar sits in the shade as long as I will let him, talking to birds. He complains when I lift him away from the leaves he is so content to lay in. He is too good for this world, which is why I need him so badly to live. His brother Floki is slightly less domesticated, but far more robust. I once thought he was terrified of humans, but I've learned he is braver with women. Both of my boys prefer women. I prefer the company of women. We all share a sensibility that we can never discuss, but we make the best of it together. Floki never stops moving, hunting as a default. He has traumatized dozens of lizards I've had to set free from his tiny jaws. And twice now, even in the exhausting, loud sun, managed to root out and kill a fat rat. He kicks their bodies around like soccer balls until he cries from disappointment that the life he took could no longer play with him. Our family unit was almost perfectly civilized, a home a guest could visit at any hour, except now Floki needs to nut. So the finer points of veterinarian science elude me, but it's amazing what they can do now for boy cats. They get to keep their furry little balls when you take them to get fixed now. The doctor just snips the part that counts, which is far more humane and an adorable aesthetic. But for better or worse, sometimes the cat remembers what they were meant for. And so Floki's taken to fucking my arm. Rarely to completion, once maybe. I only think so because of the smell that suddenly filled my nostrils before he ran away in shame. Relatable. It was like some very foreign fruit had been cracked open, simultaneously rotten and alarmingly fresh. I took a shower, but I couldn't rise to the level of outrage because I, too, have come on another person. And I was grateful that they were polite about it. All men hope that their jizz will earn a Michelin star from their partners. Deep down, though, we know we're shooting for fine. Sometimes the smell of mine has a bleach element, and I consider that a win. Maybe it'll appeal to a germaphobe one day, and they'll make an honest man out of me. I've never tasted anyone else's, because as fun as men can be to drink with, they always strike me as something to be managed, but never trusted, and therefore impossible to sexualize. From the overt schoolyard bullies fought off in childhood to the never fully kind bonding of the adults of the species, I always feel like I have to have a plan in the back of my head to kill them if it comes to it. And it turns out that's not one of my kinks. A few bad apples have not ruined me to fruit, but I have learned to ask about the conditions that they were grown in. Was their farmer a nice lesbian couple or a chemical plant? Are they happy being an apple, or do they act like a hand grenade? Was a Catholic church even remotely visible from their orchard? It's a vetting process born from the few occasions I found myself treated like prey. Each time it's happened, I've been caught off guard, to the point where my reaction is dulled by shock. I'm 6 feet tall. I've never been accused of being skinny. I'm covered in tattoos, and I'm not slow to anger. I exhibit all the people equivalents of brightly colored frogs and noisy snakes. I can look scary. I know so because women have told me. So surely there are softer targets out there. But there's no apex predators among humans, just opportunities. The first time I learned this as an adult, I was broke after college, campaigning for John Kerry, RIP, in a miserable, long Idaho winter. And I met this other volunteer, a one-armed Jesuit, who offered me a job in New York that came with an apartment. And this was an unfathomable boon to my circumstances, a seemingly holy degree of kindness. And to his credit, I got to enjoy it unmolested for a full 6 months before he started trying to put his hand down my pants. The first few times, I shrugged it out and put a little distance between us. But as it continued in full view of the other staff, I realized everyone was used to this part of the deal except for me. So after finding his internet history full of rent boy websites, I ghosted the job for a much less stressful career with the United Nations as a disaster response officer. I spent one of my first nights in country drinking my eyes out with a helicopter pilot who warned me about all the ways I might die out there, which included just on my walk back to my assigned compound that night. Whatever lay beyond the darkness of our wire was impossible to know. I could catch a bullet just outside the front door, he said, so I'd better rack with him. And I was convinced, until he asked me to jerk him off when we got back to his room. And I declined, and he passed out, but I never went to sleep. It wasn't long after that I entered the indoor phase I currently occupy, filled with little cats I make up with different nicknames for that reflect their antics, like Cinnabon and Beef, and now Horn Dog. But even Ragnar and Floki grew out of their kittenhood and stopped cuddling with one another, peacocking for space and attention. They're never too rough about it, just spats of spanking and chasing one another when they're bored, but it's enough for me to worry that they need a calming influence in their lives because I have changed for the worse. When Ragnar escaped through the bathroom window and immediately tore his toe off, I waited for him to be released from the vet at a pride party thrown by my acquaintance, a man who decided that was the night to try to put his hand down my jeans with a sweaty, drunk, slobbering confidence that turned me violent. I caused a scene, but it actually worked out for me. And after my Marine veteran friend had a psychotic break, sucker punched me and slammed my head into the bricks of my yard, put me in the hospital, I started carrying weapons. There isn't a crevice in my house around my person that I couldn't pull something sharp from now, and it comforts me, excites me even, to be honest about it. Makes me almost want the next misbehavior to happen just to witness a different outcome. I've had a question, do I do things to help it along? Jury's out. All the proof I need to believe in our biological drive to reproduce is in the fact that women do still fuck men, but I know that's pandering. The language of violence is engendered. I see the pupils of my lovers dilate and the moans amplify when my hand finds their throat now. These are the perks that I was missing out on by not participating in this cycle. Everything is about sex except sex, because sex is about power. How droll. Can't we just be content with nice things and consensual missionary? Even Floki, the blue-eyed samurai himself, he's not immune. Why can't you be more like your brother, I ask him, looking pointedly at Ragnar, who sits politely in a colder corner of the room, waiting his turn that would never come if I didn't intervene. I don't stop Floki, though. I study him, I see how intent he is, how violently he concentrates, how disappointed he is with the outcome. I let him because I feel sorry for him. I feel sorry for all these men. Their obsession for a singular outcome, it's so pathetic. Their flushed faces and increased heart rate, it's so cartoonish, yet so common, so universally witnessed. It begs the question if they've evolved free will. It never ends well. I mean, they suffer at least temporary inconveniences. I wish them all far worse. Floki and I, we're cool because he's blameless. He's a 4-year-old snowshoe I plucked from behind a washer and dryer when he was a baby. He just wants to feel good like anyone else, and I have the luxury of controlling his damage. I can swat him away without a second thought. And I can do this because I am enormously, incomprehensibly larger than he is, and he has no real power. Floki has no money, no religious affiliations, no fervent nationalist to demand his immunity for his war crimes. He has no shared friends on Instagrams. He has no Instagram. If I decide his life is worth nothing, he would die, and no real harm would befall me. I would be held to no human standard. Sometimes I replace him on my couch with Ragnar, encouraging him to take up more space, assert himself, let kindness win. But we don't speak the same language, and there are no words that override nature anyway. Ragnar always abdicates to his brother in time. He cannot match the hardness of this world. He never could. His qualities are numerous and wonderful, but they all become so tragic if he isn't a survivor. I think about killing some of the men who have been larger and more powerful than me, whether in frame or power. I could. There is no expiration date on revenge, and there are no apex predators among humans, just intention and resources. And I could probably get away with it, too, if I wasn't choosing to talk about it. I mean, even so, though, who would miss them? They have no allies. They all hunt alone. And I hope they think about that. But I doubt they do. Predators only remember what they think they need to. They never think about the people who never forget. Someone should make them, because fear is a language that all animals speak. Floki always returns to my lap a few hours after test firing his balls. He stretches across my lap and he nibbles my fingers like he did with the bottle I fed him with as a kitten. Boys, they mature so much slower. He knows not what he does. So I pet him until he falls asleep with one hand, and I fondle the handle of the hatchet under my couch cushion with the other, and I listen for anything out of the ordinary, anything but purring, and I wait. Because I will raise good boys. Thank you.
Let's hear it for raising good boys one more time. Justin is a writer based out of San Diego, and he's executive director of So Say We All.